Welcome to the Cracking the Growth Code podcast, where we explore practical growth and leadership insights to take you and your organization to the next level. I'm your host, Matt Zimbrowski, and I'm pleased to have as my guest today, Laks. Laks is a senior solutions architect focusing in on healthcare, and I'm really excited because he has a lot of relevant experience for the people listening to this podcast, and we're going to get right into it. So Laks, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
I'd love to have you I gave you a very brief introduction there, Laks. I'd love to have you introduce yourself, what you're passionate about in the industry and the marketplace today, just to give our audience a little sense for who you are and how you approach your work.
Sure. So I work in the technology space, specifically cloud and AI, and I'm focusing on the healthcare industry. And what makes this unique is because if you look at it in the last decade, technology has basically changed everything that we do. I think it started with the iPhone, and now if you see like pretty much your mobile experiences everywhere. And recently we are talking about generative AI, which is basically doing some of the things we thought was not possible. So given this progress in technology, leveraging it in healthcare and changing lives, basically helping patients recover faster or helping organizations serve patients better by reducing cost, it actually gives you enough satisfaction. And that's basically the industry that actually needs to leverage technology because they're a little bit behind when it comes to that. And also, if you look at the United States, we actually are spending more on healthcare than any other developed nation in terms of per person and as well as the total percentage of GDP. So there is definitely a lot of use you can put to technology to make sure that healthcare can be served better to everybody.
Well, that's a great introduction, and you're right. My background's technical as well, Laks, and there's so much involved in technology today when it comes to healthcare, and most people are not aware of it because they go to their doctor, they do their thing. They don't realize how much technology is behind the scene. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper. But as we get started, a theme of this podcast is about leadership and growth. Love to hear how you define with your years of experience in the workplace, leading teams and architecting, significant, solutions that are really going out and touching the lives of a lot of people. How do you define leadership when it comes to work and how you approach your work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if you look at leadership, I would say it's an ability to inspire and guide individuals towards a common goal. Because if you look at large organizations, the things that they do is something that a single person cannot even dream of doing. It's basically a bunch of people coming together for a common cause and making sure that they're able to realize the vision, which is basically for the greater good. So leader is somebody who brings this team together, who is basically setting an example and basically making sure that the team is working towards one common goal, and at the same time handling all the, the conflicts, the communication, thinking, emotional parts of it, and making sure that the goal doesn't just move away and we're able to deliver. So that's basically how I call leadership.
Well, that's a really good. I like how you said common goal and also dealing with all the stuff, right? Leading by example, you also mentioned there too. And I'd imagine that you've probably seen some amazing leaders and some not amazing leaders throughout your experience in the workplace. How important do you feel it is when you to have strong, effective leaders in your company or in your part of the organization? Do you notice a difference when there's a number of leaders who are doing what you're saying about leadership, where they have a good common goal, they communicate it well, they lead by example, they help get rid of some of the drama or the obstacles and things that are in the way? Do you find that?
Yeah. So if you look at it, I think strong leadership definitely plays a role in which the company is able to go ahead and achieve its long-term vision and goals. Because I think that most important thing for a leader is not to have a short-sighted vision, always think strategic and always think about long-term, because it's not about tomorrow, it's about what's there for the next decade. How you can kind of build something that outlast you. It's not something that's going to be good for a few days and then trips off. That's not the idea. And whenever you work with a group of people, the important thing is there are going to be conflicts and you have to make decisions. You can't just look at it and just hold back on your decisions. You have to keep moving on. You have to deliver and you have to make decisions. And that's where I think great leaders, they know how to resolve conflicts. and they make decisions pretty quickly. At the same time, they bring the whole team together. They're just not working for themselves. They make sure that everybody's empowered. When I say empowered, uh, when you have people working in your team, making them realize their potential and make sure that they become future leaders, that's very important. I think that's something leaders are doing. And at the same time, they make it a part of the organizational culture. So that way, it's not just one leader who is doing this. Every leader in the organization is following at least a least set of principles and ensures that there's uniformity. So people tend to move around within the organization, and you don't want them to have different experiences working with different leaders. At least you want to have the common goals. So that's pretty important as well.
Well, that I like the way you described that with a more of a common theme of leadership sort of built into the culture of the company and how important that is to grow the next generation of future leaders for that company because no one stays there forever, right? And
Yeah.
companies usually outlast the people. So that's a great perspective. And I'm glad you brought that up because it segues into what I want to ask you about next. I want to talk about hiring for a minute. I'm sure you've interviewed a number of people over the years. When you hire someone new to join your team, what are the top 3 attributes you're looking for in a candidate?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting question, right? Because somebody could be really brilliant, but then they may not be the best fit. So what do you call as the best fit? I think there are so many conditions. So if you look at the top 3, I would say the first one is if you have a job, of course, the person should have the relevant skills or qualifications, not necessarily a degree, but at least some experience in what you're looking for, and therefore that they are up and running pretty quickly. The second one is a cultural fit. That's pretty important because you want to make sure that they blend into the corporate culture that has been developed over the years. You don't want somebody who doesn't gel along with the team or gel along with the corporate culture because of the mobility part I told you earlier. That's pretty crucial. And the third one is ability to adapt and learn because the world is changing very fast. And especially in technology, whatever you do today may not be relevant 2 years later. So you can't just say, I'm an expert in this, and I'm going to stick to that. You should be very flexible. You should know where things are moving from the organization point of view, from the technology point of view, from the customer point of view, and make sure that you are pretty flexible. So it's not about you, but it's about how you're a team player. Those are the 3 things I look for.
Wow, those are fantastic. That's a great list as far as, the hard skills, making sure they have the skills to do the job, technical skills, etc. And then you talked about the cultural fit and their ability to really fit within the culture, which I think it's so important. And then my favorite one you mentioned at the end, which is adaptability to change and ability to learn quickly because things are constantly there. No matter how well trained or how well prepared anybody is, when they get to the new role, there's a lot more to learn. There's new people, there's new relationships, there's new systems, right? And technology's moving, by the way, like a mile a minute. So that's great. What are some of the questions that you like to, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of the questions that you like to ask someone in an interview that helps you better understand if they meet those criteria that you laid out?
I think if you look at it, I think everybody starts with tell me about yourself. I'm not going to go there, but I'm just saying the first one would be asking the candidate, what's the challenge that you faced and how you overcame it? So it could be any challenge. It could be related to the job, it could be something else. But what I'm trying to understand here is how is the person going to face obstacles when they come across it? Because if you look at the job, you are going to get stuck. And if you get stuck, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to find a way around it? Are you going to make sure that you fight your way around it? Or are you going to just abandon it and move on because you think that's the right way to go about it? How did you approach it? I think that's the most critical part I look for. And the second one I look for is the vision. Like they know this is the job for today. And then given a free choice, what do they want to do in this job over the next 2 years? How do they scale it and how do they take it to the next level? I just want to understand what the vision is because that those 2 things together will understand what's the creativity quotient of the candidate. And then you can figure out, because if you look at it, as I told, everything is changing. So you're looking for adaptability, creativity, and making sure that the person is up for the challenge. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, those are great questions, Lax, because I've interviewed when I interview people, I like to ask a question similar to what you asked with the vision question. When they get the job and when they're here, what does the first 30 days look like? What's the first year or 2 look like? Where are they going to take their career? How are they going to impact the organization? And like you said, just by asking these open-ended questions, there's a lot of ways the candidate can go in the interview to answer, and you can start to understand, are they going to be a cultural fit or not, based on the way their attitude was, their energy was, the way they answered the question, and things like that. So those are fantastic questions. I'm glad you brought them up. And let's think about the bigger picture with the industry, maybe your organization today. What do you see? And there's a lot of things happening in the market, like there's AI, there's other aspects of technology changing. There's a lot of different factors. I won't go into it, but what do you see as one of the biggest challenges facing your company today or the industry today? Does it have to do with, is it improving processes or better in talent management or engagement? Or is it, better, training with technology or ability to adapt to change? What do you see as one of the biggest challenges out there in the market today?
I think given I'm in the technology field, I think it's basically changes pretty much there. Everything keeps changing. Nothing is constant all the time. And that too, recently with the advent of AI, there is a fear that AI is going to take away all the jobs. So I think the main thing is we have to just make sure the messaging is very clear, right? AI is able to do things that were taking a lot of time, it gets done pretty quickly, but doesn't mean it's going to take away the jobs. It's going to make us do things better so that people can focus their efforts on doing something more productive, which cannot be done by AI today. So that's the key, and making sure that we create a pathway and not eliminate the roles, but making sure that we are able to deliver more value by augmenting AI to your day-to-day jobs and not just trying to replace. I think that message needs to come out very clearly. I think once we kind of put it out there and everybody gets it, I think that will basically ensure that we are able to move forward. And that's the pretty big challenge given the way things have shaped up over the past couple of years.
It is, you're right. I've talked with a number of other leaders recently, Lax, and the same perspective on AI has come up in all these conversations. Exactly what you said. The real win here is to treat AI as a partner, so we can augment AI, humans and human capability with AI capability. Let's let the humans do what the humans do best, and let AI automate and assist with some of the things that maybe humans are a little slower with. But think of it more as like an augmenting or a partnership type relationship. So I like the way you describe that. It's very appropriate, and I think most of people in technology, not most, but a number of people in technology today are more fearful of AI, that it's going to take away their job or take away some aspects of their job. But there's a lot of opportunity if they lean into it to figure out how they can partner and accelerate their job, accelerate their career as they're adapting and learning and changing. Like you're saying, the pace of change is just crazy, and AI is making it go even faster. So that's I like the way you shared that, and to overcome that, it's about get used to adapting and get used to moving with AI. Let's talk about the culture. You mentioned how important cultural fit is in terms of leadership as well as candidates, coming onto your team and so forth. If someone's come from the outside and maybe is not familiar with your company or culture, what do you think your organization is doing very well right now in terms of its corporate culture? Like what's working well? And it could be your organization within your company.
Yeah, I think I can talk about the high level of what's going on from the cultural point of view, right? I think, as I told you earlier, there are a base set of principles that are established to make sure that there is uniform, leadership being followed across the organization, so that there are certain principles that are adhered to across all the leaders. So that way, when you talk to multiple leaders, you don't hear mixed messages. I think the messaging is basically the same because they all follow the same underlying principles. And the second thing is, however big you become, you have to maintain that small company culture. That way, the teams are able to get attention and they feel a part of a larger team. It's not that they feel abandoned. And the third thing is basically making sure that employees have a sense of belonging in this whole thing. The way you create that is making sure that they are informed of what's going on, and their necessities are being taken care of. It could be basically flexibility in terms of work-life balance, and also in terms of helping them pursue their goals and making sure that they are given a platform to grow. And those are the things that I would look for from a culture point of view. I think there are a lot of examples in terms of every company having its own culture playbook, where any new employee gets onboarded, the first few days is spent on understanding what this company culture is about, because it's been built over the years. And whoever comes in, you want to make sure they embrace it, and not that they think of it like, oh, it's a great task I have to learn. No, just embrace it and blend in smoothly. I think that'll be good for everybody.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. And thank you for clarifying that. You're bringing up a lot of good points that I think matter for any company, that are important to be aware of that when it comes to a cultural fit, especially when you're, as you're saying, when you and onboarding a new person. You want to be patient with allowing them to work into the culture. So as we wind down here, Laks, this has been a lot of fun. There's been so much I learned from the conversation here today. I really appreciate it. Well, let's wrap up with one question. My favorite question I love to ask, and I think our audience loves it too. But what would be your top 3 tips for leaders today to help them take themselves and their organizations to the next level?
I think I would say the top 3 tips, I wouldn't say top 3, I would say a few things basically. The first is understand your job and make sure that you're able to do it well. But then start from there and understand what the company needs are, and raise your hand to basically make sure that you're aligning that with your passion, and be very persistent and keep doing it. And as you keep doing it, you're basically creating a positive feedback loop. And then you're making sure that getting things done, and that gets noticed, and that's basically creates this whole effect. That's how I will put it.
Very well said, Laks. Very well said. That's fantastic. You said a lot. You said a lot there to impact. There's a lot for our listeners, and I love the energy that you brought to the table today. I really appreciate it, and for all your tips. And I know there's a lot of other junior leaders in the technology space who are really going to benefit and learn from this, from someone like yourself with the experience and with what you shared. There's a lot that they can gain from just this conversation. So thank you very much for your time, your attention, your energy today, Laks. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really happy that you were able to make an appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was my pleasure. Yeah, thank you.